Okay. I heard you. Baldur's Gate 3 dropped patch 8, including 12 new subclasses, and I think it is finally time to dust it off and jump back in because Bladesingers, people, Bladesingers in BG3 and Hexblades. Man, how has it taken me this long to do a video, right? Welcome to D4. Hey everybody, so here at D4 every week I take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them, I like to theory craft about them, not so that I can tell you like the definitive right way to play a certain character or anything, but just to explore one potential way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that's both really powerful but also really fun to play. So if you also enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you just like theory crafting, or if you're looking for tips or ideas on how to build something that you're thinking about playing, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and I am so glad you're here. So thank you for watching. My name is Colby. Right, so after putting about 350 hours or so into Baldur's Gate 3 and beating it several times over, including a solo run in honor mode and doing almost 24 videos for several dozen character builds for the game, I hung up my BG3 spurs, daggers, tadpoles, a little over a year ago, and I haven't really spent much time in it since. But then Larian went and dropped a patch for my favorite subclass in the game, in D&D, right? The Bladesinger, my darling baby, a build for which sort of put my YouTube channel on the map, right, a few years back. And I mean, this patch also includes arguably the most popular subclass in the 2014 version of D&D 5e, the Hexblade Warlock, which I actually made a build for my very first YouTube video, right? As well as 10 more subclasses and even my favorite spell in the game, which got buffed, by the way. And like, yeah, I couldn't resist. I had to jump back in. And oh, how I have missed this beautiful game. Oh man, it is a masterpiece. So here we are, back for more. My only regret, I think, is not getting into like the patch 8 playtest several weeks or even months ago so that I could have had this video ready to go the day the patch dropped, because, you know, last week was Dragon Week, in case you missed it. All of us TTRPG YouTubers were making dragon-themed builds, right? So I couldn't drop this video then, I had to do that one, and it was a fun one. Check it out there. So now it's 2 weeks after the patch, and I've missed the wave, and most of you have probably already had your first Bladesinger or Hexblade playthrough, but hey, better late than never, hopefully. Let's not dally any longer. I am so very pleased to present Baldur's Gate episode number 15, the Bladesinger and the Hexblade. Yep, we're gonna do a build for each of them. But first, do you guys remember a few months ago when I talked to you about the new solo D&D adventure coming out from Obvious Mimic, the sponsor for today's video, called The Mystery of Witchhaven? I was trying to get you all to go back the project when it was in Kickstarter. Well, guess what? To no one's surprise, yeah, they totally annihilated their funding goal as always, and now this amazing adventure is in production. So if you didn't back it while it was in Kickstarter, you can finally stop beating yourself up about it because now you can just buy it. Or sure, if you backed the Kickstarter but realize how amazing it is and want to buy a copy or 3 for a friend or a loved one, you can do that too. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Obvious Mimic, well, you, my friend, are in for a treat. Not because they sell awesome D&D themed t-shirts like this fantastic Sword Coast one that I'm wearing today, and the one I wore for last week's video too, actually, but because they are the best solution in the world for those of us who don't get to play D&D as often as we'd like due to inability to get a group of friends together, or because we could use a little low-key introvert time but still want to play. Because Obvious Mimic makes amazing D&D 5e solo adventures. The Wolves of Langston was Obvious Mimic's first murder mystery solo adventure, which I've talked about a few times. It is so cool. The Crystals of Zeleth was their second, a classic adventure of exploration, discovery, and survival, where you uncover the mysteries of a hidden city. The Secret of Oki Island was their third, a swashbuckling pirate adventure. All of these are available for purchase, and today, finally, their fourth adventure is ready for prime time. Looks like it might be the best of them all. Yes, The Mystery of Witchhaven. This is a story of ancient magic, superstition, and hidden evils, where you explore a haunting village beset by a curse. There's a mysterious threat that's stealing children in the night, and you are here to stop it. This is kind of part over the garden wall, part A Midsummer Night's Dream, and 100% witchy Feywild horror. And that just so happens to be my favorite kind of horror. And of course, just like all of their solo adventures, you're going to be leveling up here, interacting with NPCs, role-playing, helping to craft a story, finding loot, and fighting monsters, but all at your own pace and on your own schedule. So do yourself a favor and go check out The Mystery of Witchhaven. I'm putting a link in the video description and the pinned comment. I'd appreciate it if you would use that so that they know I sent you. And while you're there, check out their other fantastic products as well, including their other adventures. And yeah, they're awesome t-shirt lines. And as always, if you use the discount code Colby10 at checkout, you will get 10% off your order. Oh, and I'm also going to put a link to their Patreon. Go check them out there, offer your support as a patron and get monthly solo adventures and shorts. Now, why not make it a regular thing, right? That's awesome. So, huge thanks to Obvious Mimic. You guys are fantastic. I appreciate your support. And let's jump into those builds. All right, let's do that Bladesinger first because I just can't contain myself any longer. So, starting off at level 1 for our starting class. No, we are not going to start off fighter because even though there are great reasons for doing so, this is Baldur's Gate 3, so you can just respec later to be fighter 1. Of course, you don't have to if you want to avoid gaming the system too much, but yeah, let's start wizard and beeline for our most important wizard spells and features, shall we? Maybe now it's finally time to try out that Gale Origin playthrough that you've been putting off. As for the race that you go with, as usual with Baldur's Gate 3, the race doesn't really have a huge impact on the mechanics of your character. I'm just going to say PYF, pick your favorite. Anything will work fine, honestly. And sure, there are some little benefits that you can get by going one over the other, but I just say go with like flavor first here, right? Character concept first. For our starting ability scores, you're going to want to do a 15 dexterity and take a +2 there, a 15 intelligence and a +1, and then a 14 constitution, though do feel free to swap that intelligence and constitution. In Baldur's Gate 3, Bladesingers are actually even less dependent on intelligence than they are in D&D. If you're planning on focusing primarily on being a melee damage dealer, at least. More on that later. Though, of course, it is always nice to have a good intelligence for your spell attack and your spell DC, if and when you need it, right? And to help you have more wizard spells prepared, for that matter. Investigation checks, history checks, etc. Then again, there's always that headband of intellect you can grab fairly early on in Act 1, though it looks like it's been nerfed since I last played. It's still a nice item for us though, and would let us like dump our intelligence with a quick visit to Withers anyway to respec, right? And put those points elsewhere. So yeah, especially in the early and mid game, I probably go that route personally when there aren't a ton of like really compelling headpieces otherwise. As for equipment, I am not going to spend too much time on trying to say like what the very best magic items are going to be for every level or even like at end game or anything like that. For one reason, because there are just too many great ones to consider, and two, because I'm guessing a lot of them have had balance tweaks, like the aforementioned Headband of Intellect that I probably don't know about. Maybe some new ones have been introduced, so I'm just going to say in general, we're going to want to be getting the best light armor we can find and the best finesse light weapons we can find, because yes, we will be dual wielding, so look for, good short swords, scimitars, daggers, sickles, etc. Beyond that, stuff that's going to add damage to your weapon attacks and increase your hit chance will be priorities. As a Wizard 1, then we first up get Arcane Recovery, which lets us recover spent spell slots equal to half our wizard level once per day, always appreciated. And then, of course, wizard spells. And while there are plenty of good ones to consider, as always, I'm just going to focus on the most important ones for this build, right? And they are, first, the shield spell, of course, since especially as a melee character, we're going to want to be hard to hit, and shield lets us use our reaction when we're hit to increase our armor class by 5 until our next turn, making us much more durable. But the thing that I am most excited about here, spell-wise, is that Booming Blade has now been added to the game. Oh baby, and it is better than ever. This was not my favorite spell that I mentioned earlier actually, but it's a good one. So with Booming Blade, in case you didn't know, it's a cantrip, you cast it as an action, and it just makes a weapon attack as well, right? But then adds an extra d8 of thunder damage to the hit, once you hit character level 5, that is, and it's actually 2d8 at character level 11. But then it also makes it so that if the character that you've hit moves before your next turn, they're going to take a d8 or 2d8 or 3d8 more thunder damage, depending on the level. If you're going to be making weapon attacks anyways, it's just a really nice option to have. And guess what? In BG3, if you have this spell, once you have extra attack, you can just substitute this spell for one of those attacks. Anybody can do this. You just have to have the spell. So yeah, congrats. Everyone got the equivalent of the like D&D Bladesinger's extra attack if they've got access to Booming Blade, right? It's pretty dang awesome. Now, at level 2, we get our wizard subclass, and we, of course, are going with blade singing. A master of wizardry and swordplay, you combine the elegant maneuvers of a warrior with the devastating magics of a mage. This is just the lithe, dexterous, agile spellsword Gish's dream. As a blade singer, we get 2 features. First, training in war and song gives us proficiency in light armor and the performance skill, as well as proficiency with daggers, longswords, rapiers, scimitars, short swords, and sickles. It's very generous of them. Actually, in D&D, you just got to pick one weapon. They do sort of make you choose what your Bladesinger weapon is going to be, and then give you one of those weapons, but you don't have to use that specific weapon in order to benefit from the next and most important feature, Blade Song, which says that twice per long rest for now, we can start our blade song. No action required, by the way, no bonus action in this game at least, and I love that. You just do it. And then once it's active, it lasts for 10 rounds and gives us an extra 10 feet of move speed, advantage in acrobatics checks, and a bonus to both our armor class and our constitution saving throws. No, not just our concentration checks, but all constitution saving throws. That's pretty awesome. Now, in D&D, that bonus is equal to our intelligence modifier. In the Baldur's Gate 3 wiki, it says that it's equal to our proficiency bonus, at least as I'm recording this, but neither of those things are actually the case here. Instead, the bonus is equal to our Blade Song power. Blade Song power is simply the number of times that we can use Blade Song per long rest. It's 2 for now, and thus our armor class and constitution saving throws get bumped by 2. But at Wizard 5, that goes to 3, meaning we can use it 3 times per day, and the bonuses go to 3. And at level 9, it goes to 4. I kind of wish that it would be based on our intelligence, if I'm being honest, because that would let us enjoy a higher bonus now and an even higher one later, potentially. But the good news is that, yeah, if you don't want to worry about it, you don't need to have a high intelligence to get a lot of benefit from Blade Song. It scales based on wizard level. And I mean, as if all of that weren't enough, Larian has actually given us a brand new toy to play with here as Bladesingers too. It's called the Blade Song Climax. Here's how it works. Once your blade song has begun and you're in combat, I tried messing with this out of combat. It didn't work, at least it didn't build charges, because every time you cast a non-cantrip spell, you get a damage charge, and every time you make a weapon attack, you get like a healing charge. At any point, you can use a bonus action to use your Blade Song Climax ability, which lets you jump up to 30 feet, and then do damage and healing in a like 10-foot radius. You will always do 1d6 force damage to enemies and 1d6 healing to yourself and allies, but then also another d6 of each for each damage and or healing charge you have, respectively, right? And yes, both will detonate every time you use it. For the damage, enemies get to make an intelligence save, and then they take half damage on a success, right? Now, doing this ends your blade song, so you'll want to use it sparingly. But again, the nice thing is that it doesn't take a bonus action to start your blade song, so you could always end it with this climax if you've built up charges and you really need to heal or finish off some enemies, and then start it back up again right on the same turn if you've got charges to do so anyways. It's pretty fun to play around with, though I should note that for me, for the way that I play my Bladesingers and the way that I'm building this one, frankly, it's generally going to mean lots of healing charges and not a ton of damage charges. Weapon attack spells don't add charges, so like if you were to, I don't know, let's say use a spell slot to Divine Smite, for example, it's not going to add a damage charge to the climax, unfortunately. Oh, and also, since it's a jump that you're making, anything you do to enhance your jump distance, like the Enhanced Leap spell, for example, which triples your jump distance, will apply to the climax ability. So yeah, consider grabbing that as a level 1 spell, since it doesn't require concentration and it's a ritual, so it wouldn't even burn a spell slot. It only lasts for 1 minute, but, maybe cast it on yourself before combat starts, yeah. Speaking of climaxing, let me pause to give a quick shout out to my channel members and patrons. Oh, shoot. You guys, I could not do what I do without you, so thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. If you're not a member or a patron, I would sure appreciate it if you would just consider becoming one. There's a button down there that says join, and in the video description you get a link to the Patreon. You can kind of do either YouTube membership or a Patreon, either way. But yeah, that'll tell you about all of the little perks that you can get by becoming a member. There's access to the library of write-ups that I do for each of these builds so that you can more easily recreate them yourself without having to go back and rewatch the video. Access to the community Discord server, and access to the monthly live Q&A hangout sessions that I do. I give my members and patrons access to all of these perks as long as they sign up at just like the silver level or higher. I just ask that you pay what you think it's worth and what you feel like you can afford. And if you don't think it's worth anything, then that's fine. You don't have to become a member or a patron. I appreciate you just being here, watching, liking, subscribing. Those are also great ways to support the channel, so thanks. Okay, at level 3, we get second level wizard spells, and oh my goodness, am I excited for this one, because while yes, of course, you're going to want to consider the usual suspects here, Misty Step, etc., the best spell in the world is now available to us, and yes, I am talking about Shadowblade. It is lightsaber time, and it is better than ever. Okay, so with Shadowblade, you cast it as a bonus action, and it just straight up makes like a new weapon for you to equip. It has the light and finesse properties and does 2d8 psychic damage, and that's a lot. More even than the best two-handed weapons in the game, right? Non-magical weapons anyways, and it is a one-handed, even light weapon. Now, you have advantage on attacks with it while you're in dim light or darkness, which is surprisingly easy to be in this game, right? Just stand in like the shadow of a building in the middle of broad daylight, and that'll be considered dim light, give you advantage. It upscales really nicely, doing 3d8 per hit as a 3rd level spell and 4d8 as a 5th level spell. But best of all, guess what? In Baldur's Gate 3, Shadowblade does not require concentration, and it lasts until you take a long rest. Say what? I know, it's like someone cast the wish spell in real life and made all of my dreams come true. So sure, grab a concentration spell at this level 2 that you want, like Blur to give enemies disadvantage on attacks against you, or Magic Weapon to make, yes, your Shadowblade a +1 weapon. Oh my gosh, somebody pinch me. Or sure, Enlarge Reduce to give your attacks an extra d4 of damage per hit. Oh, and one more thing to note, that magic ring that lets you summon Shadowblade that you can get in the game, right? Yeah, you can cast that from the ring and then cast the Shadowblade spell itself and dual wield Shadowblades. Melt into the floor. Now, to be fair, that might be great early on in the game, but later when like very rare and legendary weapons become available, right? You probably want one of those in your offhand. They make great stat sticks, and yeah, I mean, the big drawback to Shadowblade is that while it hits super hard, it doesn't otherwise get all the awesome benefits that especially the really powerful magic weapons get. Extra damage, bonuses to hit chance, other special, unique, cool things like lowering your chance to get a critical hit, etc., right? But still, I love this spell, and obviously Larian does too, because they just gave me the best present ever. Oh, and yeah, in case you're wondering, you can totally use Booming Blade with Shadowblade in Baldur's Gate 3. I guess they decided it must be worth at least 1 silver piece, yeah? Okay, so moving on. Level 4, we get a feat, and I think we should bump our dexterity here to 20 since it's the most important thing for both our damage and our survivability. And yeah, I say 20 because I'm assuming that you found the little +1 to any ability score that comes fairly early in the game, no spoilers, meaning that, you know, since we started at 17 dexterity, getting that +1 would take us to 18, and now with this feat, we'd be at 20. At level 5, we get 3rd level wizard spells, and while of course you'll want to consider all the usual suspects like Counterspell and Fireball, the most important one for this build is Haste. Holy cow, I can have an upcast Shadowblade and Haste on myself at the same time. Is my excitement getting annoying yet? Haste is just amazing. It requires concentration, lasts for 1 minute, and gives a +2 to our armor class, advantage on dexterity saving throws, more move speed, and then an entire additional action every single round. Now, if you're playing in honor mode, then you only get 1 extra attack from that extra action, right? Just like in D&D. But otherwise, it's just an entire action. I mean, sure, since we don't have extra attack yet, right, we're only level 5, then we're just getting 1 more attack with it anyways. But once we do get extra attack next level, we'll get 2 more attacks every single round with that sweet 3d8 per hit now, if we upcast it, Shadowblade. And yeah, you can make one of them a Booming Blade attack too, even with that hasted action, which at this level is now adding an extra d8 of thunder damage to the initial hit. Magnifique. Now, there is of course the massive drawback to haste that when it ends, we are essentially incapacitated for a round, and that can be brutal. But consider, at this level, our Bladesong power goes up to 3, meaning that with studded leather, 20 dexterity, and this, our armor class is a 19. 24 with the shield spell at level 5, and that's not even accounting for any like magic armor or rings or cloak of protection or anything that you might have to bump that AC as well. And our concentration checks are going to be at a +5. That's not bad, and we could be enhancing those as well. We are very rarely going to be getting hit or losing concentration on this character, but also I don't mind a little high risk, high reward gameplay, so yeah, bring on the haste. At level 6, then yes, we get extra attack here as a Bladesinger, and again, it's not like in D&D where we can replace one of those attacks with a cantrip, but like I said, anyone can replace one of their attacks with Booming Blade if they have the spell, right? And that's what we would have been doing anyways, let's be honest, so chévere. Okay, at level 6, I typically do like a damage report for my D&D builds. I never really have done that for my Baldur's Gate 3 builds, but maybe let's just pause to at least talk about what combat should be looking like for us at this level and really for the rest of the game, just to make sure that we're clear. All right, I wasn't planning on doing this, but why don't we do a little gameplay footage here of my current Bladesinger playthrough. I'm playing as Lae'zel, of course, because, the Githyanki brought us the Gish, right? They're the OG Gishes. So thanks to whoever in the Discord server made that recommendation, because it's a perfect fit, and I freaking love it. Anyways, let's take a quick look at her gear, just kind of some important gear that I've got at the moment. There's your Shadow Blade, upcast to do 3d8. The Knife of the Undermountain King is really amazing. The Graceful Cloth I love on this build. It is so good. It gives you a +2 to dexterity, plus some other things, and because it's clothing and not technically armor, you can cast Mage Armor over it and still get like +3 to your AC, basically, which is amazing. So as a result of having this and giving you a +2 to dex but to a cap of 20, it let me take my feat and put it into Savage Attacker early on, which is definitely a big help, as we will see. Anyways, other than that, the Headband of Intellect is awesome, letting me dump my intelligence and pick up other, more wisdom and stuff. So I've also got, I should say, I kind of am playing, this run as a solo run. It's not honor mode, it's tactician, I think, but I still use my companion, so it's not a true solo run, right? I like to put, Shield of Faith on from one of my companions. I like to put Longstrider. I like to put Warding Bond. And then there's your Mage Armor. Anyways, that just helps me with survivability, obviously. And so yeah, I've got a 21 AC right now, and that's without haste cast. That's without blade singing. So we'll throw Enhanced Leap on. We'll throw haste on, and then we will go ahead and go into turn-based mode and run up and start this conversation, which I know is going to end in a combat. I'll try to avoid spoilers here. We're going to get after it with Wargraz here. And yeah, that's Lae'zel. This version of Lae'zel is a little more defiant than your usual one. So anyways, combat begins. We're already hasted. We got to make sure we get Bladesong going, of course. And then we're just going to run up, and because we have extra attack and haste, we're going to get 4 attacks, and 2 of them get to be Bladesong. So I do have the luck of the Far Realm there to give me an auto crit once, and look at how hard we hit him, especially thanks to Savage Attacker. It was like almost 60 damage with that single hit at level 6. That's amazing. I love Booming Blade and Shadow Blade. Then just a regular attack. Then we get to make another Booming Blade attack, and then we get to make another regular attack, and then we've got our offhand, and it's just enough to take him out in one turn before he even gets to do anything. And yeah, we're sitting at a 26 AC now, thanks to haste and Bladesong, right? which is awesome. And yeah, from here, it's just kind of mop up. You sort of rinse and repeat. No, I'm not going to counterspell that. The other minions kind of do what they can to try and hurt us, but we've got shield if we need it, and that puts us up to like a 31 armor class at level 6 with the buffs and things, of course. And so yeah, this fight is pretty much easy mode at this point. To solo, even in Tactician, solo in air quotes there, obviously with a little help from my companions, but yeah, from here it's just, keep booming blading and shadow blade attacking, and nobody can live more than a few hits against me. This one goes down in 3 with 2 booming blade attacks, and then I run up to this one, and I think I dispatch him before the turn's over, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, okay, well, I got a lucky crit. Thank you, Undermountain King. Knife of the Undermountain King, which lowers your crit chance to 19. Among other things, then they take some turns. I don't know how this guy gets a hit on me, because he should have disadvantage, and I have a 26 AC. I guess I just got really lucky, but I got shield, so who cares? And then, yeah, this guy gets one shot, I think, with a booming blade crit. And then we got the last little enemy, and they go down no problem. Well, at level 7, I think we take some paladin levels, in case you didn't see that coming, of course. I mean, this is always my greatest desire in D&D to, pair these two together, but it's so dang hard to pull off, since in D&D, you need a 13 intelligence, strength, and charisma to be a wizard paladin, right? Which would mean a crap constitution and or dexterity, and it's just not very viable. It didn't stop me from trying it once, though, and it actually worked pretty well thanks to being a turtle, but we don't get turtle options here, but that's fine because we also don't have minimum ability score requirements for multiclassing. So there is, of course, one main reason why we'd want some paladin levels, but we will get to that in a second. For now, as a Pally 1, we get Lay on Hands, which lets us heal ourselves or an ally a few times per day, as well as Divine Sense, which lets us spend a bonus action once per short rest to get advantage on attacks against celestials, fiends, and undead. That's situationally useful, especially if we're not fighting in dim light or darkness. But then in Baldur's Gate 3, Paladins get their subclass right at level 1, and you know what? I think I probably take the shiny new Oath of the Crown here, actually. It's not a must-have, and there's a chance, depending on how this video performs, I guess, that I'll do a full Oath of the Crown, probably tank build, I think, in the future. But for now, for today, yeah, I like what they get in Baldur's Gate 3, even with just a small investment. At level 1, we get Righteous Clarity, which lets us spend a Channel Oath charge, we get one of those per short rest, right? And a bonus action to give ourselves or an ally a bonus to our hit chance equal to our proficiency bonus. That's pretty awesome, actually, especially if we're fighting in bright light against harder to hit enemies. A +3 to hit is really fantastic. But then at level 8, we would be a Paladin 2. We get a fighting style, first of all, and unfortunately Paladins don't get access to the 2-weapon fighting style, which would be nice to add a little damage to that offhand attack. So instead I say we take the defense fighting style to add one more to our armor class. We are becoming very hard to hit at this point, but the main reason that we came Paladin, of course, is for the sweet, sweet Divine Smite feature that we get at Pally 2, which says that when we hit with a melee weapon, we can spend a spell slot to deal extra radiant damage equal to 2d8 plus 1 more d8 per spell slot expended, right? After the first, anyways, capping at 5d8 or a 4th level spell slot. And don't forget, thanks to multiclassing, we have a 4th level spell slot now. And I'm not gonna lie, you guys, playing with this in-game made my heart ache just a little bit. No bonus action required to smite, and I can do it as many times per turn as I want, so long as I have the spell slots to burn. Holy cow, we can lay down some serious burst damage right now. Our sustained damage was already through the roof, Now it's just gone to ludicrous mode. Don't forget to go into your reactions tab in the game and tell it to ask if you want to smite with every level of smite spell slot, right? Every time you hit. I know that can slow things down a little bit, but that way we can add smites to our booming blade attacks, for example, which by default we don't do, I think, unless we crit, right? When we crit, it's by default set to ask if you want to smite. But I say ask if you want to smite on just a hit too. But we do get first level paladin spells here as well, and I'd probably just make sure to grab Cure Wounds in case we need a little more healing. Most of the best spells for paladins require concentration, and they're all charisma based, right? And our charisma sucks, so yeah. Now, at level 9, I can see us going one of two directions here. I mean, obviously there's plenty of potential directions you could go, but for me, I would say either just go back to Wizard here to get more and better spells and spell slots, as well as another bump to our Blade Song power, and even the not so terrible Song of Defense, which helps us not take so much damage if the shield spell can't prevent us from getting hit, right? Like if the enemy crits us or hits us with spell damage, etc. If you do this and just end up being a Wizard 10 Paladin 2, you will be more than fine and super powerful. I think for me, yeah, I probably grab some fighter levels here first. For one main reason, of course, and for that matter, if we're going to grab fighter levels, then sure, respec at this point so that you're a fighter at level 1, which would give you Constitution saving throw proficiency, making your concentration checks that much stronger. You might have actually wanted to do this before taking paladin levels, honestly, since yeah, losing concentration on haste is so punishing. But regardless, we're here now. So as a fighter 1, we get second wind for a little self-heal. We've got a few of those actually now. It's kind of nice, especially with all the healing stacks that we're going to be building up to use in our Blade Song climax. This character should have not too much difficulty surviving most fights, even if you're just doing like a solo playthrough, right? But then we also get another fighting style here, and I would want to grab 2-weapon fighting, I think, so that the offhand attack that we're making on most rounds, right, doesn't feel quite so wimpy. Finally getting to add our dexterity modifier to the damage. But then at level 10, we would be a fighter 2, and this, of course, is the main reason that we came fighter, right? Because we get action surge, which tells us that once per short rest, we can activate it to get yet another action on our turn, meaning that with haste active, we could make 7 attacks on our turn, once per short rest anyways, 3 of which would get that Booming Blade Overrider, 6 of which would be made with our 3d8 damage Shadow Blade, and all of which would get a smite piled on top, potentially for like 1.21 gigawatts worth of damage. Now at level 11, I mean, sure, you could keep going with fighter to probably get Eldritch Knight, I suppose. Yeah, there's a potential build there, but I think I would just as soon go back to wizard, honestly. It's just going to scale our spell slots the best for more smites, among other things. So yeah, as a wizard 7 here, right, we'd get 4th level spells. I'll just say pick your favorites here, PYF. Probably avoid concentration spells because nothing is as good for us in combat as haste is, but sure, Fire Shield can be nice for damage resistance and to return damage to an attacker, assuming you ever get hit, that is, which is questionable, honestly. But Dimension Door is great, Blight can sometimes be useful, etc. And then finally, at level 12, we would be a Wizard 8, and we get another feat, and I am going to want to grab Savage Attacker here. I almost forgot how good this feat was in BG3. When you make a melee attack, it lets you roll your damage twice and then just use the higher result. And in case you forgot, unlike in D&D, it doesn't just reroll the weapon damage, it rerolls everything from that melee attack, including extra damage from Booming Blade, Divine Smite, other bonuses that you might be getting from your equipment, right, etc., etc. And it just results in so much more damage on average that I'd actually consider taking this before bumping our dexterity, honestly. And yeah, just as kind of a side note, especially once you've got Savage Attacker, be sure to prioritize things that add like a die roll of damage to your attacks rather than just flat damage, right? So like, you know, a 1d4 of fire damage bonus is much better than a 2 or even 3 like flat damage, all other things being equal. Not only can that d4 get doubled if you crit, but yeah, it will benefit from Savage Attacker as well. And don't forget, we do end the game here with a 5th level spell slot thanks to multiclassing, meaning we can upcast our Shadow Blade now so that it does 4d8 damage on every single hit. So That is how I'd build a Bladesinger in Baldur's Gate 3. Correction, that is how I'm building my Bladesinger as I go through yet another playthrough, and my oh my, is it glorious to behold. Okay, but what about the other amazingly incredible Gish subclass that we got with this patch, the Hexblade? That subclass is more famous than any other in all of D&D for being guilty of the 1-level dip. Well, today we are not just going to dip into Hexblade. I love them so much that I'm not even going to multi-class out of them. That's right, they're just that good. We're going straight Warlock with this one, so let's discuss. At level 1, for our starting class, yeah, starting Warlock, and we're staying Warlock. For our race, as usual, I'm gonna say pick your favorite based on just what you really wanna play most. For our ability scores, we're gonna wanna go 15 Charisma plus 2, 15 Constitution plus 1, and a 14 Dexterity. And then for our equipment, we just are gonna want like the best medium armor and the best two-handed weapon we can get, because right at Warlock 1, we get to pick our subclass, and we are, of course, going with Hexblade. This says, you have made your pact with a mysterious entity from the Shadowfell, a force that manifests in sentient magic weapons carved from the stuff of shadow. And we get some really great features here right at level 1 from Hexblade. First, Hex Warrior, which gives us medium armor, shield, and martial weapon proficiency, nice, as well as the ability to bind a hexed weapon. This works similar to how Pact of the Blade works in Baldur's Gate 3, letting us simply bind the weapon that's in our hand, making it our hex weapon, meaning that we get to use charisma for our plus to hit and damage with it right at level 1. And this was honestly the main thing that caused Hexblades to be such an oft-used 1-level dip in D&D under the 2014 rules. Now that in 2024, Pact of the Blade works like it does in Baldur's Gate 3, and essentially does the same thing, lets us use our charisma for our attacks, and now that you can get that Pact of the Blade right at level 1 in D&D, right? A 1-level Warlock dip is just as popular as ever, but you just aren't locked into being a Hexblade anymore. But there are other benefits to being a Hexblade, namely the Hexblade's Curse ability, which we can use once per short rest as a bonus action to curse a single enemy, thereafter letting us do extra damage to the enemy equal to our proficiency bonus every time we do damage to them, and also lowering the number that we need to get a critical hit by 1, which, don't forget, is a thing that stacks in a BG3, right? Also, if that target that we've cursed dies, we regain hit points equal to our Warlock level plus our Charisma modifier. Not bad. One thing I really love with Hexblades in BG3 though is that when we hit an enemy with our Hex weapon, we have what looks to be about a 20% chance to automatically apply Hexblade's curse on them, whether we've used it on somebody else already or not, which is super cool for both damage and survivability purposes. We also get Warlock spells here, of course, and unlike other Warlocks, Hexblades get access to the shield spell, which is awesome. Take that. We also get access to the new Booming Blade, which is doubly awesome. Beyond that, sure, grab Eldritch Blast for a great ranged damage option, Armor of Agathis for some increased survivability and potential to return damage to our attacker, right? And then yeah, good old Hex, which we cast as a bonus action. It uses our concentration and lets us do an extra d6 of damage to our targets on our attacks, though if the enemy dies, we have to spend a bonus action, transfer it to somebody else, right? It's still a pretty solid use of our concentration, especially in the early game. At level 2, we get Eldritch Invocations, and at this level, I think I'm probably just taking like Fiendish Vigor for some free temporary hit points, and then Agonizing Blast in case I need to make ranged attacks so that I can add my Charisma modifier to Eldritch Blast. None of the invocations feel super compelling to me otherwise, if I'm being honest, but then I might change my mind at level 3 and swap one of those invocations to Devil's Sight, which lets you see even in magical darkness, right? Because at level 3, we get second level Warlock spells, and that means we could pull that old trick by grabbing, the darkness spell, casting it over our enemies, and then attacking them inside of it, getting advantage on our attacks, and giving the enemies disadvantage on their attacks against us. That said, the spell is a lot weaker in BG3 since we can't cast it on ourselves, right? And then it just like stays with us when we move around. It just stays stationary. It's still not a bad idea to just stand inside and maybe like Eldritch Blast everything with impunity though. The other spell I definitely consider here would be Shadowblade. Because yeah, again, unlike in D&D, you can actually bind the Shadowblade as your hex weapon since it lasts all day. And I do love that a lot. And I'd probably be using it at least at this level. However, I don't think I would build around Shadowblade here like I would for a Bladesinger. And the main reason is because of our Pact Boon, which we get here at Warlock 3. And we kind of have to take a Pact of the Blade, right? But here's the thing. In Dungeons & Dragons, you can have one weapon be your Hex weapon and another be your Pact weapon and attack with both of them using your charisma modifier, right? As far as I can tell, at the time of this recording at least, that is not possible in BG3. The Hex weapon just like replaces your ability to make your weapon in hand your Pact weapon. And while you can still summon a Pact weapon, even if you already have like a Hex weapon, when you do so, it seems to remove the Hex weapon benefit from the thing that you had your Hex weapon on. And if you first summon a Pact weapon and then make a different weapon your Hex weapon, the summoned Pact weapon just disappears. If you know how to make this work and I'm just missing something, let me know. But yeah, we're kind of forced to just have one weapon be the thing that we make charisma-based attacks with. So before too long, I'd probably favor a two-handed weapon over Shadowblade as my Hex weapon because at level 4, we get a feat, and I want to take Great Weapon Master. This feat famously says that when we attack with a two-handed or versatile weapon, it's too bad Shadowblade isn't also versatile, then we can take a -5 penalty to hit, but enjoy 10 flat extra damage if we do hit. And 2d6 plus 10 for our weapon is going to be like 17 damage on average compared to the 9 that we'd get from the 2d8 for Shadowblade, right? 13.5 maybe, call it, if we upcast it, but that's still worse. Especially once we start getting like nice, rare, and better like magic two-handed weapons, right? And sure, that -5 to hit from Great Weapon Master isn't nothing, but hopefully you can have somebody in your party doing something to increase your hit chance, like casting Bless on you, or using Fairy Fire on your targets, etc. Or if all else fails, sure, go for Darkness and Devil's Sight. One more thing with Great Weapon Master. If you get a critical hit or kill an enemy, you get to make a bonus action attack with the weapon, and I find that triggering all the time, especially in BG3. So that will be a really nice way to get a fairly reliable bonus action attack. At level 5, unique to BG3, we get Deepened Pact here, which simply says that we gain, as a Pact of the Blade user, extra attack with our Pact weapon, and yeah, this works with our Hex weapon too, and makes me suspicious actually that the coding here might have had something to do with not being able to have both like a Pact and a Hex weapon. I guess there is that one weapon in game that lets us attack with our charisma modifier, right? What was it called? I can't remember, but maybe in that case we could be like dual wielding with a Shadowblade build. And don't forget, with extra attack, one of those attacks can be a Booming Blade attack, which does extra damage at this level, so I would use that going forward. Anyways, we also get another Eldritch Invocation here, and I think I might just take Mire the Mind so that we can cast slow with a Warlock spell slot. Kind of lame that we don't get to cast it once per day for free or anything, in my opinion. That always bothered me about those, spell invocations. But slow is a super solid spell, especially in this game where control has been heavily nerfed compared to D&D. Slow to me is like the cream of the crop maybe for debuffing enemies, but it's not a must-have invocation here. Pick your favorite. We get 3rd level spells now, too, as Warlock 5, and while there are plenty of solid options to pick from, as always, the one that I want to highlight here is only available to Hexblade Warlocks, and it's Elemental Weapon. This is a truly solid spell, and it's typically only available to level 9 Paladins. And now, Hexblades, 4 levels sooner. It adds a +1 to our weapon and a d4 of damage of an elemental damage type of our choice as well. And yes, it works with weapons that are already magical and hexed for that matter. It requires concentration, but it lasts all day and is just a really nice way to improve our already hard-hitting two-hander. Best of all, if we upcast it with a 5th level spell slot, and since Paladins don't get to 5th level spell slots if they're going to go to Pally 9 for this spell, right? Even if they try and multiclass. So Hexblade Warlocks are the only ones who can do this. Then the spell increases to a +2 weapon that adds 2d4 damage. And that is significant enough that I think it's worth using our concentration on. Unless we're using like the Drake Throat Glaive, which I think we get in Act 2 if I remember, right? That essentially casts the spell already. They don't stack with each other. In which case, no worries, our concentration is freed up for something else. At level 6, as a Hexblade, we get Accursed Spectre, and I'll be honest, this is probably my least favorite Hexblade feature in D&D, and I was kind of hoping that they would do something else for Baldur's Gate 3, but it's fine. Here it says that if we kill a creature who was victim of our Hexblade's curse, as a reaction we can then raise a feeble, mundane, or primordial specter, depending on the size of what we killed, and it's basically like a little free pet for us that we can use to make our enemies' lives slightly more miserable. I'm not going to go too much into the details of what each one does, that might take too long. They're fine. You can't actually control them, they just like do what they want. They're immobile, but they can teleport to the enemy that you hit with your hexed weapon and then do a little damage, like potentially pull enemies towards you, heal you a little bit, etc. I don't love it, but it's not nothing. At level 7, we get another Eldritch Invocation. I'm just going to say PYF here. I might grab Repelling Blast to be able to knock enemies off of like cliffs and bridges with Eldritch Blast, right? It pushes them, and that, that comes up a lot in this game for sure, so handy to have. And then we get 4th level Warlock spells, and yeah, PYF here too. Banishment can be a solid single target control option. Dimension Door is great if you need a big teleport for you and a friend even. But almost all options here require concentration, unfortunately, which would kill our elemental weapon, so I'm just going to say take the one you like best. At level 8, we get another feat, and if this were 2014 D&D, of course, I would be saying to take Polearm Master here, right? But much to my great dismay, a year and a half after release, Polearm Master seems to still be broken in BG3. Or, I mean, at this point, maybe you just have to say, I guess it's working as they intend, but if so, it sucks. It doesn't work like I think it's really supposed to. So, Polearm Master lets us make a bonus action attack with, if we're wielding a halberd or a glaive, right? With the, the butt of the weapon, the haft. And it just does a d4 of damage, and we wouldn't really care about it just being a d4 of damage instead of a d10 if the attack otherwise did everything that you would think it's supposed to do, since it's supposedly using the exact same weapon to make that attack with, right? But it just doesn't reliably do that. If the weapon inherently does additional damage because it's a magic weapon that adds a d4 of fire damage or whatever, that doesn't seem to be applied to that butt action attack, and a whole host of other things that you would think would work just don't. Plus, with as hard as we hit, we're going to be killing and critting enemies all of the time anyways, giving us a better bonus action attack from Great Weapon Master, right? Most damningly, for this build especially, that Polearm Master butt attack doesn't even use your charisma modifier to hit and damage like with our hex weapon. At least it didn't last night when I was testing it. So yeah, until that gets fixed, hard to imagine at this point that it would. I'd just bump charisma here instead with our feat to 20, right? Assuming that we got that +1 to charisma earlier in the game from that swamp lady for better spells, better weapon attacks, not to mention, persuasion checks and conversation, etc. At level 9, we get another invocation, PYF again, nothing that's going to add a ton of damage to our combat encounters or anything, lots of fun and useful, utility stuff especially. But then our Warlock spell slots become 5th level spell slots now, and we get 5th level spells. I think of all of them, I probably would want to grab Hold Monster. It does require concentration, but enemies who fail their wisdom save against it are paralyzed, and it works on anything but undead, unlike Hold Person, which only works against humanoids, right? And yeah, attacks against paralyzed enemies have advantage and are automatic critical hits. So sometimes it will be worth, using your concentration for it, no question. This is, though, the spell level at which elemental weapon now becomes a +2 and a +2 d4, right, on a hit to the weapon that you cast it on. And yeah, for those of us getting a -5 to hit every swing from Great Weapon Master, but hitting so dang hard when we land that hit, that +2 is a pretty big deal. And again, it stacks with existing bonuses, right, that the weapon may inherently have. Also, that said, though, we could be upcasting Shadowblade here to do 4d8 per swing now. So, I mean, yeah, depending on what two-handed weapons are available, you might want to consider respecking, right? Dropping Great Weapon Master as a feat and just making that Shadowblade your hex weapon and putting elemental weapon on it, which you could do. Either is a fine option, but I think with the weapons available to us at this level, we're probably better off with Great Weapon Master most of the time. At level 10, as a Hexblade, we get Armor of Hexes, which says that when a creature we have cursed with Hexblade's curse attacks us, we can potentially use our reaction to nullify the attack, which is great, but it only works like 50% of the time. So yeah, I mean, we've got the shield spell, that takes our reaction too, but is kind of guaranteed to cause an attack to miss if they only beat our AC C by 5 or less anyways, right? But you know, whatever. It will save our bacon once in a while, no question. At level 11, we first up get a third spell slot, right? Remember, warlocks only get 2, though they reset on a short rest. Now we have 3. And having 3 5th level spell slots that reset on a short rest is pretty dang fantastic. We also get a 6th level spell, but we don't use spell slots for it, right? It's our Mystic Arcanum that we can just use once per long rest. Pick your favorite here as usual, but if we wanted to avoid concentration options, I'd probably go Circle of Death for a nice AoE damage option, or sure, Create Undead isn't terrible if we want to kind of start building a little menagerie of pets fighting for us, I suppose. But then finally, at level 12, we get a third feat, and I think I would take Savage Attacker on this build as well here, but it is a little less potent for us than it was for the Bladesinger, right? I mean, sure, it would reroll weapon damage, the extra damage from elemental weapon, and any other damage rolls that we're making, thanks to our equipment, right? Rings that added D4 of damage on weapon attacks, etc., etc. It all adds up, and it's still pretty good. But also, a lot more of our damage on this build is coming from just flat damage bonuses like Great Weapon Master, right? And those don't benefit from Savage Attacker, including even the Life Drinker Invocation, which is available to us now at level 12. We get a final invocation, and Life Drinker was kind of the main reason I wanted to just straight class to Warlock 12 with this build. It tells us that our melee attacks deal extra necrotic damage equal to our charisma modifier, making this kind of like the Tavern Brawler of charisma-based melee attackers, right? So yeah, every hit now will get plus 10 damage from Great Weapon Master and plus 10 more for doubling our charisma modifier, right? Plus 5 and now plus 5 again. So a flat plus 20 to every single hit, plus more for elemental weapon and whatever else our awesome two-handed weapon is giving us right now. Playing around with this a bit myself last night, I was consistently passing 50 damage per swing at level 12. Even more against a cursed target, more if it was a booming blade attack, and almost always getting a bonus action attack from Great Weapon Master as a result. So yeah, it felt like the sustained damage at least was surpassing even my Bladesinger build more often than not. But to be fair, the burst damage capability of this build is a lot lower compared to, you know, what we had with the Bladesinger. So let's kind of do a little final thoughts summary here. Was it really worth getting to Warlock 12 just to add 5 more damage to every attack? Why not do like we did with the Bladesinger and just take a couple of fighter and pally levels for some really solid burst potential? I mean, you could, but here's the thing. Remember that Paladin and Warlock spell slots don't mix, right? So 2 levels of Pally would give us like 3 first level spell slots to go along with our 2 Warlock spell slots. That doesn't allow for nearly as much smiting. We could have taken 2 Pally levels after, say, Warlock 5, and then maybe gone Bard or Sorcerer the rest of the way for better spell slots and better smites, and that's certainly an option. But also, I think if I were going to do any multi-classing at all, I might first take actually a single level wizard dip, since remember in BG3, with just a single level of wizard, you can learn wizard spells from scrolls as long as you have the spell slots to cast them. So after Warlock 5, when you have 3rd level spell slots, you could take a single level of wizard, learn the haste spell from a scroll, and at that point, yeah, you might want to grab Pally and or fighter for burst damage, sure, or, you know, paladin and sorcerer, or heck, all 3. But again, if we're going to lean into Great Weapon Master, don't discount the ability to add a +2 and some more damage to a weapon that probably already has a nice +2 or even +3 to hit, right? So I think for me, for this build, you know, I kind of think of Warlocks in BG3 especially, where Eldritch Smite doesn't exist, right? As the quintessential, I can do this all day kind of character. Their spell slots reset on a short rest, and you don't really need to use a lot of them with this build, typically. You could probably get through an entire act, heck, maybe even the entire game if you try hard enough without ever taking a long rest with this build, and that might be kind of fun to try. And the damage that you put out with it would be super consistent and frankly phenomenal. So anyways, this has been my return to BG3 content. I certainly hope that you enjoyed it. I know I did, and it definitely made me want to play some more, so I'm gonna finish this up and log back in. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more Baldur's Gate 3 content, let me know in the comments. Or frankly, for that matter, if you don't, let me know that too. I'm not sure that I'm going to do a bunch more videos for BG3. It kind of depends on how the video performs. There's definitely a part of me that would love to, you know, try out a new build for each of the new subclasses. Maybe even make a Hexblade and because I think that there's a pretty decent build there. I did it once in D&D. Check it out there. But yeah, more than anything, I hope that you know how much I love you. Thank you guys so much for all that you do for me and for the channel. I hope that you have a fantastic day and a really great week. And if you don't, please, please hang in there. Don't give up. I'm confident that you can get through whatever it is that you're trying to get through right now. I hope that you will do good and that you'll be kind and that I see you again very soon. But until then, take care. Bye. When you get to Asheville, write me if you will. Tell me how you're doing and how it's treating you. Ooh, if it don't work out. Ooh, if it don't work out. Ooh, you can turn around and come on back to me. Come on back to me. You can come on home to me. If you have not seen the musical Bright Star, Steve Martin did it, right? And other people, but he was the most famous one. Oh gosh, what's the gal's name that he did that with? She's actually pretty famous in her own right. Anyways, it's a fantastic show. That's my favorite song from it. And our local high school actually just put it on a couple of days ago. We went and saw it, and I was blown away at how good it was. I've seen the show before, like done by professionals, and it was, you know, off the charts. But this was like really, really good. I was amazed. Knox, my editor, who's also my son, and in high school, he came with us. He can confirm, right? It was so good. Dude, you've got some talented kids at your school, including you. Oh, he's cringing so hard right now, but he's got to put it in. He's got to put it in. Got Vi in the background looking over my shoulder. Is that too distracting? That might be too distracting. And, you know, between Shepherd on my left shoulder and Vi over my right, apparently I've got a type. I like strong women. What can I say? It's one of the things I love about my wife. I actually started a Bladesinger playthrough as Gale, and I'm having a hard time. I'm like level 3, and it's just like, you know, I love playing the companion characters because it's just interesting. You just get a slightly different sort of angle on their story, right? But yeah, Gale is just not what I envision when I envision a Bladesinger. I'm picturing somebody a little more, martial-minded, maybe a little more sort of brooding anti-hero type as opposed to this sort of jovial brainiac. Come in. Oh, sorry. There's a guy for you at the door. And you... So, yeah. So we persuasion and our to the weapon that you yeah, I mean, I'd rather dog. Yeah. Okay. Persuasion